It is Sunday morning, and you know what that means. Football is back. The NFL is here. The Browns versus Cowboys. I got a full preview for you. Fantasy football start, sits, injury reports, and maybe some late waiver wire pickups too. We got that. We have your best bets. Big show, week one, right now on the Sick Podcast with Andy McNamara.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast with Andy McNamara, the sickest Cleveland Browns podcast.
Chubb runs, he's to the 10, 15, he's to the 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50. There goes Chubb, he's to the 30, 20, 10, 5, touchdown, Shabba-lubba hub.
It's gonna be sick.
Hello, everybody. Woo! Football Sunday. Yes, we had the Thursday, we had the Friday, and now we got the main slate of the game. I'm Andy McNamara. If you're new to the show, welcome. Because we're talking Browns. We're going to talk fantasy football. You can get your questions in using hashtag AskAndy. I got my guy Rich Dotson from Dynasty Nerds, one of the premier fantasy minds to combine with my premier fantasy mind. Get you ready for week one. Also, some best bets. A lot coming up on the show here. But first, what you got to do, very simple. Click subscribe, notifications on. That's it. Follow us on social media too, on X, at SickPodBrowns, at AndyMC81. We got weekly betting picks, fantasy football, Brown stuff, all there on TikTok and Instagram as well, at AndyMC Sports, to get you ready for Browns Cowboys. Now, we're going to have to wait, all day, pretty much, because the Browns play at 4:25, as you know, and it's Tom Brady's debut in the broadcast booth. The world's going to be watching. They're anticipating over 30 million people. 30 million people watching this game. We will be one of them. I'm sure you will too. Jump in the chat as well on the YouTube page. Now you can be watching live on Twitter, on X. We'll keep our eyes open for the comments there. As well, on the YouTube page, you can jump in the chat at that point as well. So we'll all be there. Answer your questions, your fantasy football questions. I know you got them. Okay. I got my most recent championship ring last year. I help people win championships, folks. That's what we do here on the show. Win them for myself, help win them for you. Got the rings in the background, got the bling. Use hashtag AskAndy. Get those fantasy questions in. And on the betting side too, we're going to have a lot of fun as well. So let's look at this Browns-Cowboys matchup. And this is going to be, and the injury stuff, as we know, it's all over. So I'm going to be looking at my phone here. We're going to be making sure that we have all the up-to-date info that we need. So the biggest factor to me for the Browns going into today, injury-wise, of course, is the left tackle situation. On Tuesday's show, it looked like we kind of had it figured out. Okay, Jack Conklin, he was back, he was going, he was feeling good, and then he was listed as questionable. Jed Wills ruled himself out, so Jed Wills isn't available. James Hudson has been taking reps at left tackle, and this is interesting too. And again, we're going to try to get as many in the moment live updates as we have kicking here, because I believe the Browns also elevated, Jermaine Ifeadi from the practice squad as a backup tackle. That doesn't sound good for Jack Conklin to play. So right now, Browns injury report. Tackle, Jack Conklin, questionable. Jedrick Wills, out. Michael Dunn, not available. Luke Whippler's out, and Nick Chubb. Those are the main. We knew those ones. For the Cowboys, John Stevens Jr., tight end, he's out. Who cares? A bunch of guys on IR, but nothing too notable except, if you missed it, CeeDee Lamb was activated from the commissioner's exemptions list, which was a weird situation, right? Because it was like they put him on. He could have been on for 2 weeks, but you could take him off anytime. Very confusing. He signed the big extension. CeeDee Lamb is playing. So CeeDee Lamb is in, and by all accounts, looks ready to go. The question for the Browns is, and I want to know too, give me your Browns predictions. Give me your game time predictions. I'll give mine at the end for Browns Cowboys. The trouble with the left tackle spot is, okay, if Jack Conklin can go, James Hudson and him, I feel probably are going to be splitting some time, because Conklin hasn't played since week one last year, where he had that terrible knee injury, right? Needed the one surgery to fix like all the ligaments in there. So are they going to rely on Conklin for the whole game? Sounds like they're not. You got Hudson in. How I hope it plays out is this way. Conklin is their best option when healthy. All pro right tackle. He played left tackle in college. I know it's not the same, but he's done it. And I feel much better about him in there than James Hudson, who love James Hudson. We root for all Browns players, right? But James Hudson, to me, is pretty terrible. He's not good at right tackle. Whenever he's in at right tackle, bad things happen. And now you're putting him at left tackle? The harder position, you're putting James Hudson at left tackle. Not good. So what I hope is you have Conklin in there, Jack Conklin in at left. See how he feels. Maybe sprinkle in Hudson, maybe 2 series on, 1 off, whatever, and have him in. It's smart that they bring up the reserve from the practice squad because, well, Conklin hasn't proven he can stay healthy. And if he doesn't, you better make sure you got somebody else in reserve there. This is not great, of course, for Deshaun Watson. You got Micah Parsons hunting. And we know if there's a weakness, and it's on that left side, Micah Parsons is the man to watch. So does that mean the Browns are going to be doing some chipping? Are they going to be doing have the running back in there, extra tight end? What's this going to look like? That's my concern when it comes to the Browns. Other than that, man, we are ready to go. We are ready to go. Browns 2.5-point favorites on the DraftKings Sportsbook. Pretty much a pick 'em. That means, of course, for Dallas. Here is the real interesting part to me on this Dallas team. You got all the drama, whatever. But when it comes down to it, look, say what you want about Dak Prescott as a playoff or clutch quarterback. Regular season, he's damn good. He is. Fantasy football is good too. For the Cowboys, the real interesting part comes on their offensive line. This is a line of scrimmage battle today. A rookie left tackle, rookie center. Now, we've talked about that. Left tackle Tyler Guyton and center Cooper Beebe are making their NFL debuts. So you're going up against the reigning assistant coach of the year, Jim Schwartz. You're going up against the reigning defensive player of the year, Myles Garrett, along with Zadarius Smith, Quentin Jefferson in the middle, who's going to give that extra pass rush. Dalvin Tomlinson, you mix in Obo, right? There's a lot of options there when it comes to the Browns and how you're able to give those looks. But what I found interesting was, hey, Jim Schwartz and Kevin Stefanski, but mainly Jim Schwartz was saying at his press conference earlier in the week, hey, fans, we want you there. We need you loud. Not we want you. It's not the hyperbole. Fans come out. No, we need you loud. You need to be able to do this. And here are some interesting quotes from Schwartz earlier in the week. Jim Schwartz, Browns defensive coordinator, quote, this is from our buddy Tony Gross, ESPN Cleveland. Part of us playing so well at home is our home crowd making it difficult for guys to hear the quarterback signals. That's real. That's not fake noise. You go to a hockey game and it's not. No, that's real. I saw it last year at the Titans game when the Browns played them and Tannehill was going and couldn't hear. The crowd blocked him out. Schwartz goes on. They put a lot on Dak Prescott to command the line of scrimmage. Their runs, almost all their runs have check with me signals, whether they're looking for down safeties, yada, yada, different things like that. He has bailouts a lot all over the passing game, and it makes it difficult when an opponent is at our place because our fans are so into it and so loud. So it makes it hard for them to see. That's what we got to do. We got to rattle these young guys. You got 2 rookies on the offensive line. 2. Let's get at it, man. Right? Like let's get at this. If you're at the game, be damn loud. I don't have to tell you, bark, do whatever the hell you need to. But this is an important part because the Browns defensive line, I don't see this being high scoring at all. In fact, if I'm looking at the Browns over under, I think it was at 40.5 earlier in the week. What's it sitting at here? It's at 41 on the DraftKings Sportsbook now. I'm thinking under. I am. How good the Browns defense is, how many questions there are with what does Deshaun Watson look like the first time since he's played since November. Last half of the game we saw him against Baltimore looked phenomenal. I thought we were on our way, and then the injury happened, the glenoid bone. So what does Deshaun Watson look like? What's our left tackle? What does Dallas is? Is it a lower scoring game? I think the defenses decide this, and it's one at the line of scrimmage. I'm saying the under on the over-under at 41. Ultimately, just have the Browns win. I don't give a crap what the score is. Just get it done, okay? Folks, you know what you can also do is while watching the Browns, while watching this program, and getting your comments in on the YouTube page, The Sick Podcast with Andy McNamara. Get your comments in. You can jump in on Twitter as well at SickPodBrowns, at AndyMC81. Use hashtag AskAndy for your fantasy football questions, Browns questions. I want your Browns predictions, but you can do it in style. Look good with our buddies from Homage. Yeah, look at that. Homage specializes in ultra comfy, high quality looks, repping sports, pop culture, and more legendary moments. Learn more about Homage with the link in the show description. And folks, I'm wearing one right now. Like, it is super comfortable, fits great, makes the shoulders pop a little bit, right? Feeling good. And they have unique stuff. You have your Browns and other teams, the basic stuff, which is phenomenal. But this is great. Like, I have my autogram shirt. You can't get autogram shirts, right? This is that's the real go, not Brady. That's the real go, baby. Okay, you get that? Look at that. It's beautiful, comfy, great. Our buddies at Homage. All right, we're gonna keep you up to date on any other Browns news. We're probably not going to be getting many injury updates until later in the afternoon, I wouldn't think. That's why you got to make sure you're up to date at SickPodBrowns, at AndyMC81 on X. Let's bring in a Clevelander, a Browns fan, and one of the finest fantasy football minds for my money. It is Rich Dotson of Dynasty Nerds. He's back with us. Rich, how are you, brother?
I'm doing good. Rocking my Homage hoodie here.
All right, there you go.
Got a Homage undershirt ready to go. It's game day. Football's back. Football's been back since Thursday, but
yeah,
in my eyes, football's not really back until the Cleveland Browns kick off football out there in Huntington Bank Field. So I'm geared up. I'm ready to go. Can't wait to get on the stadium. Can't wait to see everything count. Like these last two games for me, from a fantasy football perspective, it's great to see the 6 months of research and preparation all come to effect when everything actually counts.
Yep, that's right. And then, of course, after all that work, some guy you never heard of goes off for like 3 touchdowns. Like, God damn it.
Listen, that's all right, because it was somebody nobody ever heard of. Nobody's got him in their lineup, so I'm not even worried about it.
That's right. You pick him up off the waiver wire and off we go. So are you going to the game today?
Oh, yeah. Season ticket holder for 13 years.
Right?
Yeah, I will be down there. I try to make sure I go to every game and one away game. My away game this year will be Las Vegas.
Oh, beautiful. That's going to be hang out with our buddies at the ESPN Cleveland crew.
Yeah, they're all heading down there as well. I'm sure we'll probably cross paths and possibly link up. But, what Vegas is for me, when I go to Vegas, I don't make plans. I just go to Vegas and see how it unfurls in front of me.
How it goes. So what's the weather supposed to be like down there today? Is it everything kind of clean? It's
chilly. It's a little chilly, from having these warm days. The high, I think, is gonna be like 66, but mostly it's just sitting right around 62. So football weather totally fine, but at the tail end of summer, 62 feels a little colder than it usually does. Give me 62 late November. I'm gonna be out there in shorts and a tank top going, look at this weather. So it should be good. No rain. It doesn't look like. Should be clear skies. Everything's going to match up pretty good here for the Cleveland Browns. I feel really good about the game today. I feel really good about the matchup. I love our defense versus the Cowboys. It's going to be exciting to see how this Cowboys team looks, with the offensive line not being as good as it has been in years past. CeeDee Lamb, I'm not too worried about him missing some time. He's just, one of the best receivers in the league. He should be fine. A great one of my sneaky players on the year, Brandon Cooks, is out there as well, who is wide receiver 14. Was wide receiver 14 overall from week 10 on. So that's a good matchup. But their run game, they're gonna have to push the ball downfield, Andy. And
the run game is terrible on paper.
Yeah, and we have such a strong defensive line and good linebacker unit, and definitely where that new offensive line rule is, where the right tackle has and left tackle have to line up with the guards. That should bode really well for our defensive ends as well, to put pressure on Dak, because right now I don't know if their backfield is fossilized. I'm sure they met a couple of dinosaurs, but Dalvin Cook and Ezekiel Elliott, Rico Dotto is probably the most explosive player they got. So then with them having to push the ball downfield, you could argue the Cleveland Browns had the best secondary in the NFL. There's a very strong argument for there. So everything really bodes up well for the Cleveland Browns. And the Cowboys are missing Deron Bland, their Pro Bowl cornerback from last year. So that helps out a ton as well for the Cleveland Browns, who are going to throw the ball a ton. Listen, they're a top 10 in average pace plays per game last year. And that wasn't good enough for Stefanski. So what he does, he goes out and brings in Ken Dorsey, who wants to even throw the football and have the pace of game even more. So the ball's going to be moved downfield here. We have a really good electric core here of Elijah Moore, Jerry Jeudy, and Amari Cooper, all savvy route runners. And then you have a guy like David Njoku in the middle. It should be very exciting for the nation to see as Tom Brady comes out here and announces his first game.
That's right.
But even more exciting to see for the Cleveland Browns, who don't always get to start off on the best foot as 1-0 when the season starts. So this is a really good start, a chance for us to establish ourselves as Super Bowl contenders in 2024 in front of a national audience, and really kind of change that narrative. What's going into it with the Browns over under at 8.5 wins. Yeah, you can get that out of here. Or at least that's where I got it at when the line opened up.
Right. That's ridiculous. A lot of people are saying 9 and 8. You know what? People love anytime the Browns start to get good, Rich, people love to dump on us. They do. Oh, the sad sack Browns. That's a great story. We like, down and out. Oh, 1 win. Screw you. No. We're the real deal this year. I'm totally with you. Get your comments in on the YouTube page there. We got our buddy Grant from Canton. Grant, how you doing, brother? You know what? So here's Grant's keys to victory. He put in, make Dak get the ball out of his hand fast. Defense get CD to the ground ASAP. Get Watson going with some short passes, play action reads. That sounds real good to me. And if you can pressure, and that was one of the main additions and hopes with Quentin Jefferson in there, to get that defensive, the internal tackle penetration in, plug them back, Garrett and Smith on the edge running around, and then you got to get it out quick, and that eliminates CeeDee Lamb being able to get downfield. You got to do dump offs, which if they get space, they can still do damage, but at least it can make them a little more predictable from that standpoint. So I like those keys to victory.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I mean, you can put like a guy like Jordan Hicks on Jake Ferguson too to kind of help protect the middle. You mentioned it's not just the edge too that we have there, Andy. You know, obviously Obo coming in substituting, but like we saw what Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah could do last year when they really want to utilize him as a weapon. And the way the Browns can play man coverage the way they can, that really puts a lot of opportunity for the Browns to put a ton of pressure on Dak Prescott. And I love that game plan that he just put out there, because that's it. That's a huge key to victory right there. All those go down, and we're coming away with a W over 7 points.
Give me that all day, and then set that tone, because we know that the schedule later in the year gets a lot tougher. One fantasy move I was interested in for this game is adding, and I picked him up on waivers. I'm not going to start him today, but I want to see how it develops. Jalen Tolbert. You mentioned Brandon Cooks, but as that third receiver with Michael Gallup gone, Cooks, we know, can be injury prone, in and out. Something happens to CeeDee Lamb, and maybe on the outside, Jalen Tolbert. I think he's third round pick in 2022. There's some opportunity there. Again, somebody I want to have in reserve. Wait and see, and maybe he can develop a little bit. I don't know if it's going to be today. I hope not. But down the road, that's somebody I want to keep my eye on.
Yeah, I mean, he came out. He was somebody I was somewhat excited about coming out. I thought he had some potential. Everything I've seen so far in NFL, like he's just one of those guys he's just a guy. Like he's nothing spectacular. He got a lot of run there too to kind of shine a little bit with CeeDee Lamb kind of sitting out of training camp, and he was the number one there. Definitely Brandon Cooks sitting at times. For me, like I don't view him as a stash, Andy. I just because the odds of everything going right for him, and you're right. Like Brandon Cooks could go down. Brandon Cooks was actually pretty healthy last year, which was nice to see.
Yeah.
And right now you could say the three-headed weapon they have, which they're going to throw the ball a ton. It's going to be Brandon Cooks, it's going to be CeeDee Lamb, but the argument is like Jake Ferguson's the second option at offense. We saw last year the rapport with Dak Prescott and Jake Ferguson and how well that went. Definitely in the red zone. I mean, Jake Ferguson, we saw in the playoffs, I think he had at least two touchdowns in the red zone. So Jalen Turbert's one of those guys you can stash, but I mean, I would rather shoot for upside of like, you know, maybe like Olamide Zacchaeus out of Washington, right? Like who's going to be the number 2 receiver out of Washington, who I love, Zach Ertz. I love Zach Ertz as a sleeper because, you know, being familiar with Cliff Kingsbury's offense in Arizona from those 21 games that he played with Cliff, like they need a number 2 option. And Zach's a very savvy veteran. Other tight ends are rookie. So like who's the number 2 and who's going to see the targets outside there in Washington with Jaden Daniels? And Jaden Daniels push ball downfield. And everybody's looking at Jaden Daniels as like, hey, this is a rushing quarterback. And you can argue that Jaden Daniels is the second best rushing quarterback in the NFL outside of Lamar Jackson from day one. But he's a very accurate quarterback as well and able to push the ball downfield. So I'd be more intrigued of like taking a gamble on Diami Brown of Washington or Olamide in Washington and kind of stashing those guys on the back end. Because listen, on the back end stashes, you want to see what you got like right away, right? Like Jalen Tolbert, yeah, you're waiting for an injury, but what if that injury doesn't come and you're literally just wasting a roster spot where like, I'd rather grab a guy like a Washington where like if Diami goes off for 6 catches and 70 yards and a touchdown, guess who's going to be the number one waiver wire pickup? Like, I'd rather beat the waiver wire and go ahead and find myself in that category and find guys like that, right? That can give me some upside. Like a guy, even like, whether it be a tight end at receiver, but you got to remember, everybody's so quick to react, right? Like to what just
Isaiah Likely's ads. I can't wait to see Isaiah Likely's going to get 3 catches for 36 yards next week. Book it. I guarantee it.
I mean, and dude, and that was kind of somewhat predictable, right? Like the way they played that cover 2 there in Kansas City, they gave up a lot of stuff over the middle. Everybody kind of predicted a tight end. And once we saw they were double teaming, triple teaming at times Mark Andrews, of course Isaiah Likely is going to have a good game. That's not going to happen all year long. No reason to fret on all that. But yeah, of course, Likely should be on the field. He's a very talented player.
Good.
I think that's just scheme and that setup of that game led all that to Isaiah Likely. Just like for Washington, all the coverage is going to go to Terry McLaurin. All of it is. So, like, where else are they going to have to look to? Because they're going to have to throw the football out there as well. So, yeah, those are guys I love to target. Shoes on my waiver wire. Who, DJ Shark went on IR today in LA. And they have almost 400 targets.
Rich, they got nothing. Who are they throwing to? I'm huge on Ladd McConkey. I picked up a lot of Ladd McConkey shares before this. Well, I just don't think they have it's not even, you don't even have to be that high on Ladd McConkey. I just think the opportunity is going to be presenting itself there.
Oh, I'm high on Ladd McConkey. He was my 4th receiver coming out on this draft. I absolutely loved his tape coming out. Jordan, absolutely loved it. On my bold prediction show, I predict he's going to catch 100 footballs this year, come out of the slot there. But yeah, with DJ Shark, who's supposed to be taking a top off, makes Josh Palmer versus Las Vegas this week a very intriguing start for you guys out there in your starting lineups. If he's on your bench, I mean, Quinn Johnson, they want him to play well, but everything that concerned me and why we kind of like talked down on Quentin Johnson during our rookie progress or scouting reports was, he just can't win on those one-on-one matchups, really. Like, he really struggles there. And he kind of showed the same thing last year in NFL with his hand. So it really puts Josh Palmer, the guy who's been there the longest, as another really intriguing option here for the LA Chargers. I'm going to call them the Las Vegas Chargers.
I know. Hey, they might move there next. Who the heck knows? This is one other pickup. You mentioned Washington, especially for Dynasty. I'm sure you're all over Ben Sinnott, because if something happens to Zach Ertz, the talent-wise, this year's be interesting again. Rookie type. Everyone's Sam Laporta. That's one. Sinnott's super talented, but that's another one there, I guess, as far as stash. If he's there, maybe somebody if you're thin at tight end.
For sure. He's super athletic, Andy. He's a very athletic, and obviously his draft pedigree showed that too, being the second tight end off the board. So for me, looking at a guy like Sinnott, it's hard to trust rookie tight ends. They usually didn't come out there, and it's not like Sam Laporta became tight end 1 last year, scored a lot of touchdowns, and I love Laporta, but that's an outlier case, right? And last year's tight end class was unbelievable. I know when after I got done scouting that rookie tight end class, I said this tight end class will change the fantasy football landscape when it comes to tight ends. And with the addition of Sam Laporta, Dalton Kincaid, they had my
Mayer?
God, no, not Meyer. No, I'm having a complete brain time lapse. Forgetful here. Who my other tight ends were? Like, I know Luke Musgrave was in that class.
Musgrave, last year, because this year Brock Bauer, right?
Yeah, well, Brock Bowers is all day, every day. They're going to utilize that guy like a tight end or a receiver. They called him just a weapon, and I know they invested a 2nd-round pick in Michael Mayer last year, the Notre Dame prospect, who is a very nice prospect, but he could block really well. He's more of like that Jake Ferguson tight end, where Brock Bowers is a big unstoppable receiver. I mean, remember Brock Bowers, Andy, from day one as a freshman, 18 years old in Georgia, where he won multiple national championships. He was the number 1 weapon with guys like Adonai Mitchell, Ladd McConkey, all on this offense. And he was the number 1 guy. His yards after the catch is through the roof. His catching ability is through the roof. I think they're going to use him more like a receiver than a tight end. And that bodes well for everybody's fantasy football production, because outside of Kyle Pitts, he could have been the best tight end I've ever seen come out of college.
He looks phenomenal. And Kyle Pitts is another one. See what he does with the new quarterback, new coaching system. Fantasy question in. You can get yours in on Twitter, on X, at AndyMC81. Use hashtag AskAndy, at DynastyRich, at DynastyNerds. Get those fantasy questions in. We got one here. Quick fantasy advice for Jordan Love owners. I got that bugger in 3 leagues, man. pick up a QB today if you can and drop a player that probably is barely on your roster. That's from our buddy Grant asking that. Like, this is a case like as soon as he went down, Rich, as soon as I saw him go down, I was like, crap. I went right to the way I was getting myself Justin Herbert. I was trying to like Matthew Stafford, like just try to get the as reliable an option as possible, which is the benefit of being in that Thursday game and early. You could still make that waiver wire transaction before the next loop, because man, if you didn't, it's quarterback hunting, and that can be as ugly as it could be. Malik Willis is god awful. I'm keeping my eye, Rich. Ryan Tannehill on the street. That's somebody. If I'm the Packers, you get that guy in there.
Yeah, that's the easiest guy to pivot. I mean, the news that just came out, it was like an hour ago from Rappaport, seems like literally best case scenario. It's a grade 1, possibly grade 2 MCL sprain. So we went from being like, wow, 3 to 6 weeks. Like now it seems like 3 weeks is the max. And I'm with you. Like I have a lot of Jordan Love shares too. Like I was all in on Jordan Love. Like he showed me, I think from November on last year, I was on the podcast screaming like, this is the best buy in Dynasty Fans Football. Like I'm all over Jordan Love. I'm all in. I made sure I went out and traded and got some shares. And you're right, in your redraft leagues, if you have to get on the waiver wire, if you mentioned a guy like Matt Stafford, if Matt Stafford's on your waiver wire today versus Detroit, I mean, that's a fantastic start. I mean, we saw Matt Stafford last year versus Detroit. Yeah, Detroit, really good team, offensively dynamic. And they've done a really good job with like Aiden Hutchinson in that front line area. But their secondary is still no bueno. When it comes from a fantasy football perspective, quarterbacks ate up on Detroit last year. It's inside a dome. So Matt Stafford versus Detroit, going back to his very familiar stomping grounds out there, would be a great option. Geno Smith is probably on your waiver wires. Geno Smith would be another good waiver wire option out there. A guy who threw for almost 4,000 yards last year, 29 touchdowns. And they bring that new offensive coordinator from Washington, Ryan Grubb, over. And he's a pretty innovative coordinator out there as well, with a strong running game in Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. He's got 3 real legit weapons to throw the football to today versus Denver. So 2 waiver wire options you can pick up. Our old pal Baker is a great option too. I mean, he's playing Washington. Washington's defense is absolutely horrendous.
They traded all of it.
They traded all away. And last year it showed they were the worst quarterback when it came up to giving fantasy football points to the NFL quarterbacks last year. So Baker Mayfield, guys like Geno Smith, and the guy you mentioned, even like Matt Stafford, are great additions to your fantasy football lineup for week 2. Obviously, you can't play him this week versus the guys I mentioned, but those are guys that are going to show out. Again, if guys show out this week, you're trying just to get ahead of it, right? Because you don't want to miss out on the waiver wire. Like, when you put the waiver claim in just like everybody else does, then it's like, hey, where do I stand? Best of luck.
Yep. Best of luck. That's it. And with Stafford, remember, Cooper Kupp back healthy. You got Puka there as well. Early in the season, everything is lined up for a guy like Stafford. And I love the Baker pick there. What does this mean for someone like a Jaden Reed, who I tried to pair the two of them. I tried to stack them in there. I was extremely happy week 1. Jaden Reed went bananas. But the problem now is this has such a rippling effect when it comes to fantasy without Jordan Love, because now I can't, especially, dude, if they don't pick up Tannehill and go with Malik Willis, stop it. Like, what are you even trying? Are you trying not to win the division? Malik Willis is the worst. But now what do we do with Jaden Reed? Like, Jaden Reed said, you got those other receivers. Maybe this is a case where Josh Jacobs' fantasy stock goes up a bit, because you're not, even if you bring in a Tannehill or go with one of the other guys on the roster, you're not going to want to air it out as much, I wouldn't think, right away.
Yeah, I mean, if you have Josh Jacobs, you're starting Josh Jacobs, right? We saw what he did last week. He averaged over 5 yards to carry. Really started off slow, but that's against a lot of people are like, oh, there's the same old Josh Jacobs, but that was a very stout Kansas City Chiefs defensive line, right? And does he have the initial burst and explosiveness? No, but we still saw when he gets in open field, he has a little bit burst there. But for Jaden Reed, a player, again, another player I was all over on that I loved. I was trading some first round picks for Jaden Reed. What's nice about Jaden Reed, Andy, is like he could win so close to the line of scrimmage, and he won again. Like last year, one of my points was about Jaden Reed was he could be kind of that poor Deebo Samuel, right? The poor man's Deebo Samuel, where they're using an aspect. They were making sure they're getting him the ball because he's so explosive. And we saw what he did just the other day with the end around, 1 handoff, 33 yards, 4 touchdown, right? This is a guy who's explosive. He's elusive. He's got good agility, and he's going to make some plays happen. And for him, I think out of all the receivers, he wins the most because you're still going to scheme ways to get him touches and get the ball out quick, and it's going to be to Jaden Reed. Obviously, him and Romeo Doubs led the team in targets. I expect that to continue. But for me, in an NFL passing league, they're still going to throw the football no matter who the terrible quarterback is. I'm right. Get in, but Ray, Andy, same thing. We say, oh, get Ryan Tannehill in there. Is he an old enough vet where he just get in there and get going? Or would it be Malik Willis? Yeah, or would it be Malik Willis no matter what? I don't know. Yeah. But I think Jaden Reed is probably still going to be safe from a fantasy football perspective over the next couple of weeks. At least I hope so. I
hope so too. They're very, very excited. Now we got a few questions in on X at SickPodBrowns at AndyMC81 hashtag Ask Andy asking about Jamar Chase. Rich, this is a problem. This is a big problem on two fronts for the Cincinnati Bengals, who, we look back a couple weeks ago or in the offseason, you're licking your chops from a betting side, from a fantasy side. Bengals versus the Patriots? Yum. Line them up. But now we got a disgruntled Jamar Chase who was holding in and not practicing. All of a sudden, he's not feeling well on Saturday, and then Saturday night, he's kind of feeling well, and he's questionable. Look, is it a case where you got to put Jamar Chase in as long as he's going to play? Because it panics me. As soon as I started hearing this stuff, I picked up in a lot of drafts Andre Yasevich, IOS, pronounce it how you will, as that third option because Tyler Boyd's away, especially if Chase isn't going to play or is like, if they're coming out before, like, look, super limited. I don't mind him. This is a hella talented guy in year 2 that Joe Burrow can be thrown to. How are you addressing this Jamar Chase situation with the Bengals today?
Yeah, so a couple of things I want to touch on there that you mentioned. One with Jamar Chase is, if he plays, you're playing him, right? Like he's just a dog. You're going to put him in there. He's got a good rapport with Burrow. They've been playing since college together. And I mean, you couldn't have a better matchup for somebody coming in or just come out of the bed with the sniffles, or even we'll see how he's really feeling. We have no idea how he's feeling with the way he's going in and out of holding out because he wants his contract. It could just be another ploy for that. But I mean, New England's defense is atrocious. Again, another atrocious defense here for him to go in there. But you mentioned Andre Zovis, and that is that's the interesting move of the day versus New England. He's got a really good matchup. It looks like T. Higgins is probably going to stay with that hamstring. And this is somebody who kind of showed out all summer long, Andre. And to him, it got him a starting spot. He was the third receiver in this offense. And he didn't play a lot last year, but he had 15 targets last year, caught 9 of them for 72 yards and 2 touchdowns. So you're right, Andrew, that if you're looking for a wide receiver, like say you had T. Higgins and you were really hoping to get him out there and holding out. If you have Chovis, then you're still in a good spot because the matchup works. If Chase isn't feeling good, or they don't even feel comfortable giving Chase all the targets, it will be a Chovis that could really eat up in today. And a guy even possibly like Mike Gesicki as well at tight end. I like Chovis. I like Gesicki. If you have Jamar Chase, you're starting him. Because again, everything's matchups too, right? Like you got to see who's got the best matchups here. And everybody on the Bengals has a really good matchup versus New England Patriots.
Would you start both? Would you do Chase and Yasevich there today?
I mean, it really just depends on my options, right? I mean, in a vacuum, no, but it depends on how my lineup's looking, really. I mean, I'm in a situation in the league, and obviously Dynasty is completely different because there's no waiver wire, but I'm in a league where Keenan Allen's beat up and I'm forced. I got to start Keenan Allen and DJ Moore, and that's my best option. Now, I'm not trying to compare Echevis to Keenan Allen, but I mean, you can't be afraid to make those moves if your team's in a tough spot because the Bengals are going to throw the football today. Burrow's going to get out there and let it rip versus Bengals offense. And somebody's got to catch the footballs, and there's not a lot of options out there. It's going to be Trenton Irwin, Chevis, and Chase, and Gesicki. So you divide up those, 40, 30 pass plays that Burrow's going to throw, and where do you think they're going to go? Yes, Chase is going to get some, but there's about 25 other targets you're going to divvy out there, and I would put them all on the Chevis if I could, like you mentioned. It's a great start in need. But it's but it's also week 1, Andy. So how many people are really in need? How many people are facing a ton of injuries and what's going on? If you're up against it before kickoff at 1:00 on a Sunday of week 1, you might as well start. Yeah, you might start writing your love letters to your loved ones, telling them goodbye because you're dead in the water as it is.
Something's not going well. Let's get one more in for you here, Rich. Other players to watch for that have good matchups. You mentioned Keenan Allen, kind of on the bubble there. Opposite him, Calvin Ridley's really interesting with Will Levis and the Titans. There's opportunity, but can Levis get it to him? That's an option. I want to talk real quick about this one, and then if you have anybody else to throw in. I don't think people are respecting the Titans' run game enough because it's a guy who's coaching that O-line that we know very well as Browns fans, Bill Callahan. And we saw what he was able to do with this Browns offensive line and planning the run game out over the years. No one's, because it's not hot to talk about offensive line coaches, but the Bill Callahan factor and Tony Pollard, I think right there. Now, Spears, depends how they use him, but I think Tony Pollard could be a real nice play this year, especially if you want to take a little bit off of Will Levis's shoulder and work in that run game there in Tennessee with Bill Callahan. I'm liking Tony Pollard. What do you think?
I like Tajay Spears. I like Tajay Spears more than Tony Pollard. And that's just me.
Sure.
Both very solid running backs. I do love the game. You mentioned, with the addition of Bill Callahan, you just don't get the great best offensive line coach in there. He also, for the Browns, schemed their run game too. We saw the Browns one run game has been. We've got even guys like Jernus Johnson. Jerome Ford wasn't that effective, but he was okay. I mean, Jerome Ford, he averaged 4 yards per carry, 48 yards per game. But I mean, yeah, you get all that. So for me, Tony Pollard had a really great second half last year in Dallas, and they paid him. But I still love Tajay Spears and what he showed on tape as well. Real dynamic in the passing game, and I think that's really he could really win. But I also think the Titans need to see what they have in Will Levis. They have to see. They went out there and they paid Calvin Ridley all that money, and they went out and signed Tyler Boyd, and they got DeAndre Hopkins, they got Chigo Konakwo. They did that for a reason. They got to see what they have in Will Levis, and he's intriguing. Remember his first game last year, he comes in and throws 4 touchdowns,
right?
And comes back, I think it was versus the Dolphins, and has a dynamic game. And I think it took him the rest of the season for throw 4 touchdowns again.
Yeah.
But a strong arm receiver that had hey, people were saying, hey, this guy could go in the first round and maybe pop 10. Obviously, he slips to the first pick in the second round to the Titans. But he's been up and down guy, and I wouldn't be surprised. Yes, they're going to run the football. It's why they paid Tony Pollard, and knowing they had Tajay Spears, which was somewhat of a shock to me because Tajay Spears looked so good the second half of the year last year when he got his opportunity. They're going to run the ball, but I think they're going to really have to see what they have as well. If Will Levis starts to falter whatsoever, yeah, they have a run game to rely on. But in fantasy football, if you're playing PPR leagues, I want to lean towards the guy that I think is going to catch the most footballs. And if I had to guess, it's going to be Tajay Spears for the Tennessee Titans this year. I think he ends up outscoring Tony Pollard and has a chance to be that running back for fantasy. Maybe it's from 18 to 24, but that's fine because it's still a running back 2 and still a championship caliber of players. But I'm always searching for those PPR guys, right? What are we looking for? I say this all the time on the podcast when it comes to fantasy football, Andy. We want rushing quarterbacks. We want wide receiver ones. They're seeing all the targets. We want a tight end who's either the first or second target on their team. And then for running backs, we want guys that catch footballs. That's where the juice is. Because if you give me a guy again, Alvin Kamara, that's where his juice has been. And he's been a running back 1 for 7 straight years. If you get me a guy who's catching 4 to 6 footballs a game in the NFL, then he has a very good chance to finish as a low-end running back 1 or a high running back 2 on that alone. I'm not worried about how many touches he's getting between the tackles or roll him outside to the edge. Give me 4 to 6 catches and give me anywhere from 40 to 70 yards receiving, somewhere in that range. If we can get there and you sprinkle those couple of touchdowns, that to me is where the juice is. That's where the consistability is. Because again, you get those other running backs, they only use Tony Pollard on the ground between the tackles, and Tony Pollard has a very nice game. Say he catches 1 ball for 7 yards, but he has 80 yards, which is a nice game. You're still only talking 9, 10 points.
If you get in the end zone, you're right.
Yeah, and that is not something that you can really the consistency there isn't really going to be there for guys like that. The only guys that really won over the years like that, Derrick Henry has done it consistently. The last couple of years, his pass catching's kind of helped really propel him to the levels where he's been fantasy. And then besides that, was a guy like Adrian Peterson. Usually those guys, and Nick Chubb's done it as well. And I guess you throw Nick Chubb in there as well. Most of those guys don't really win from a fantasy level when they're just toting the rock. We need guys to catch the football. And for me personally, I really liked how Tajay Spears was with his pass catching ability and even ability to play out of the slot.
Nice. Last one for you, Rich. Anybody else you got your eye on today as far as sliding in? Any game matchups you really like? Because we know the first couple weeks of the season, it's almost like an extended preseason, right? Is there any other spots that kind of jump out to you that you want to pop in there?
I wouldn't, there's some guys that are intriguing out there. If you're up against it for like certain positions, like Hunter Henry for the Patriots against the Cincinnati Bengals, like the Bengals, like against tight ends aren't very great, and they need to throw the football they're gonna be trailing the whole time. So they're gonna have to push the football. So yeah, they have Javon Baker and Jalen Polk. They're two rookies, but outside of that, like their veteran presence is the secondary receiver Pop Douglas, Demario Douglas. So like Hunter Henry, who they were signed, is probably possibility to be the most successful in the air today versus the Bengals. And like I said, the Bengals last year weren't really great when it came to stopping the tight end. And I can see that carrying over to this game for a team that's going to struggle. Jacoby Brissett with that offensive line, how bad it is in New England. He's going to get the ball out quick. So you can look for Hunter Henry to kind of be that safety net. I think he's a really good spot out there for people that need tight ends. We talked about a guy like Josh Palmer, who I love a ton this year, ton this week. At running back, it's really hard because all those guys are set, right? Like it's kind of hard to sign a guy like who can get in there. I mean, maybe look at a guy like Chuba Hubbard. Get in there for Carolina. Versus New Orleans is sustainable. That defensive line versus Dallas isn't as great. You have Micah Parsons, but not a whole lot else to go with him. So a guy like Jerome Ford is somewhat of an option out there.
And you talk about the PPR option, him and Watson. I was at that Titans game last year where they connected through the air. So on that ground, and especially with them wanting to work in for the Browns, those extended run plays, those quick little toss outs, Jerome Ford could be a really nice fit for us today.
Yeah, and he's the only option they have in that fit as well, Andy, because Deontay Foreman is not gonna fill that role. He's gonna be the ground and pound goal line guy. So Jerome Ford definitely heavily involved there as either they said. We know Deshaun likes to roll out, right? So like it's definitely a good option. Jerome Ford's another sneaky guy out there. But the best advice too is like week one, right? Like you drafted your team, you put all the time in, like you're starting your lineup, right? We said the same thing. If you got Jamar Chase, you're putting him out there. Week one, put him out. Even against these defensive backs and defenses that were really good last year, a lot of these guys don't have full-time playing time versus other teams. So, like, we see the offense have way more success early in the year. So, you drafted your team. You like the guys that you like. Put them in your lineup. I know it sounds pretty chalky and like, oh, thanks a lot, guy. Set your best lineup. But week one, that's what you do. You draft the guys, and then see how it goes. You have highly rated, you put out there, and let's see how it all plays out, right? Let's see how these offenses look for real, because the preseason doesn't mean anything. No team shows anything. And we know that as Cleveland Browns fans. A receiver that I like coming out of college, Austin Watkins, last year was the number one receiver in the preseason. And the guy's was on an active roster last year. He's on an active roster this year. All that is meaningless. This is what counts, and this is what is for real. So put up your lineups. Let's go. I'm on Twitter at Dynasty Rich. I'm always there to help, right? This is what I do for a living. I study NFL players and find out the quickest and best path for success, and that's fantasy football points. I'm always here to help.
And tell people, Rich, where they can get the podcast, Dynasty Nerds, such a fantastic tool and day-to-day resource for the fantasy player.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for the number one Dynasty podcast out there, I mean, you can just look at the rating reviews and where we rank in Chartable. Dynasty Nerds podcast comes out a ton in season. We have a new show coming out on Mondays to kind of go over injuries and tell you who to pick up and who to play when players do get hurt and how that might benefit for that length of time. The regular podcast comes out on Wednesdays and Thursdays, and we have a lot of segments there. We have a ton of guest shows. We're on YouTube. My co-host Garrett, he puts out tons of content on YouTube. So make sure you get to YouTube and follow the Dynasty Nerds channel. And my co-host Garrett is putting out videos almost every day to put you in the absolute best position to get guys on your roster or in your lineup to get that W. So YouTube, Twitter, podcasts, Dynasty Nerds, we're here to help you get wins. Because listen, we're all on the same path here going forward, right? We want to win fantasy football championships. Nothing else matters. We don't play to win a game. We play to win a ship. So just like the Browns are going to do, follow us, and we're going to help get that W.
There you go, buddy. Well, I'm pumped. Look, enjoy the game, man. Look, Jim Schwartz wants people out, so I hope you got your barking voice ready, brother. Let's go.
You know it, man. I'm there every week. I'm there screaming. I'm at the 10-yard line right behind the Browns bench. I've been there for 13 years, and yeah, man, I love it. I'm going to be there loud. I love that. Like last year, I felt we made a difference being 8-1 at home. So let's go ahead and do it again, and I feel really good about today. Andy, I feel really good about the season if we can stay healthy, and it all comes down to 4. Right? Like our defense is there, our receivers are there. It all comes down to 4. 4 can be 80% Like I think it was Shannon Sharp said it the other day, or whoever it was. Like he could just be 80% of what he was coming out of Clemson. The last time he played in Houston, the Browns have a very good chance with this defense to go all the way.
They do.
And
they
that's
do.
it.
Absolutely.
And I'm gonna pound the table for that until it's proven otherwise.
Absolutely. I'm going to be down there for the Bengals game, October 20. So we'll link up. Then we'll buy you a beer. Going down with my pops. We'll link up, talk some Browns.
100%, man. Then we'll talk soon. We'll talk October 20th at the latest, Andy.
Absolutely. Okay, buddy. Talk to you soon. Thank you.
Appreciate you. Later, bud.
There he goes. Rich Dotson from Dynasty Nerds, one of my favorite guests. Love Dynasty Nerds. And you know what you're going to love, folks? You're going to love the DraftKings Sportsbook because NFL Week 1 is here. A new season means new ways to get in on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Are you ready to place your first bet? How about this? Try betting on something simple, like picking a player to score a touchdown, okay, for example, right? Or picking an over-under. The Browns are Browns-Dallas game. Actually, the line went up on the DraftKings Sportsbook while we were on the air from 41 to 42. On the over-under. I'm going to take the under personally, but you can do something simple like that. Just a straight winner, loser, pick someone to score a touchdown. Keep it simple. And it's very simple and easy because you can find all those lines and odds on the DraftKings Sportsbook app for upcoming games. And, you can ready to get your touchdown dance going. You got a touchdown dance going? You ready? You feel good? You feel good, brother? You going to bark? Hur, hur. Let's get ready for it. Actually, I was telling producer Shane before we went on, and make sure too, the Sportsbook app for DraftKings, get 6 sports is the code to use. $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Just put 6 sports in, $5 bet, you get 200. Come on, it's week 1. Let's have some fun. Let's do it. 6 sports is the code. New customers get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just 5. So I made a bet yesterday, getting a little nuts. Okay. How about this? An 11-leg anytime touchdown parlay. You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. An 11-leg anytime TD parlay. A $2 bet would pay out. It's like $25,790. So if you see me wrapped in gold chains next week, I hit it. 11 leg. And the thing is, I picked pretty reasonable players to get touchdowns. I didn't pick anybody outlandish or like some guy off the bench. So I'm going to be watching that. That's right. That's part of the fun. $2, is it going to hit? It's not going to hit, but heck, maybe it does. That'd be pretty sweet. And I got another bet for you for this Browns Cowboys game that I think could pay off going around on the touchdown side. Let's get to our sick picks for DraftKings.
It's time for Sick Picks. Brought to you by DraftKings. The crown is yours.
There we go. And mine for today is a 3-leg same game parlay, anytime touchdown. Okay. Jerome Ford for the Browns, David Njoku, and Jalen Tolbert. Tolbert, we were talking about with Rich Dotson. He's not too high on him. I think he's going to be that other outside guy for Dallas. And with the Browns defense having to command attention to CeeDee Lamb, to Jake Ferguson, the other downset Brandon Cooks, I could easily see a Jalen Tolbert sneaking in somewhere and scoring a tutty. And then we look at it from the Brown side. Jerome Ford, those extended passes. Him and Deshaun Watson connected on touchdowns last year. There's connections there. David Njoku was just so primed to pop as well. Him and Watson have been working together a lot. Corner touchdown, pop it up to Njoku, nice little over the top. Makes a lot of sense. You put a $10 bet on, it's plus 5,500 odds. So you put a $10 bet on that, pays out $560 for a Ford, Njoku, and Tolbert anytime touchdown. Let me know your best bets. What are you feeling? What's your craziest bet you're doing this week? Grant on the YouTube page there. Get your comments in too if you want. Hashtag Ask Andy. It says, see you on October 20. That's right, brother. We'll get Grant and Rich down. We'll do a whole little Sick Pod Browns hangout. Maybe go to Johnny's Little Bar, one of my favorite spots in Cleveland. Yeah, we'll do that. We'll figure something out. I think that'll be a nice fun little angle there. Get your fantasy questions in. Hashtag Ask Andy on Twitter, X at AndyMCD1 at SickPodBrowns. I also want to set my perfect DraftKings fantasy lineup for DFS, our daily fantasy play, because it's a case where, we got our fantasy leagues, but with DraftKings as well, you can make your bets, you can set your lineup. So I got our little lineup here. Okay, so you can play, you go on, you can do free to play, do whatever you want for that. So let's set our lineup. We got $50,000 to play with here. Okay, so I'm going to pop in to my quarterback, Arizona versus Buffalo. Give me Josh Allen all day. I know, top expense paid quarterback, but this is a case where for Josh Allen, look at his receivers. You got rookie Keon Coleman. My guy, Carlin Gay, works for the NBA down in Charlotte now, big Bills fan. He's like, Coleman's you watched him in college. He's got brick hands. I'm not excited about it. Josh Allen's going to have to do it himself is my point. Running back, let's go to our guy who I mentioned at our anytime touchdown. And if that equates, we're going to be feeling pretty good. Jerome Ford for the Browns versus Dallas. Not so interested in the rushing yards. I'm interested in the all-purpose yards for Jerome Ford. We pop him in there at that nice $5,500 price tag. Then Tony Pollard for Tennessee versus Chicago. Rich Dotson said he likes Tyjae Spears. You want to put him in instead? Go for it. I think Tony Pollard, you paid him the cash. You got Bill Callahan there, $5,900 salary. Let's do it. Now we're moving to the wide receivers. Seattle versus Denver. My guy, my combine crush from years ago, DK Metcalf. I think the Seahawks have lost they've lost some shine, maybe a little bit, some excitement from Geno Smith's breakout a couple years ago. DK Metcalf is a stud. Denver, you got Bo Nix. The defense is meh. DK Metcalf, give me him at 6,200. Then we're going another big dog. You find those contrarian plays. You try to find those ones that pop, but you also got to put the star power in. Tyreek Hill, come on, versus Jacksonville. Tyreek Hill's going to be an absolute monster again, especially in the warm weather. 8,700. He's expensive. So we got the two expenses. We got Allen and Hill. Then we try to look for a little value. Where can we make up a little bit here? And that's why I go to Indianapolis hosting the Houston Texans. Adonai Mitchell of the Colts. Adonai Mitchell of the Colts is who I'm looking at here. $3,800 because you got Michael Pittman as the main target. You got Jonathan Taylor in the back, right? You got Anthony Richardson returning. Rookie Adonai Mitchell. Jump ball. Deep ball. He was my combine crush this year. 6'2". I wanted the Browns to take him so bad. Oh, I love Adonai Mitchell. I think he's going to be an absolute have a monster year fantasy underneath Pittman, possibly surpass him at times. Because you got that approach. Give me Adonai Mitchell. Then tight end, a little bit cheaper than I thought. Maybe it's because you're playing the Pittsburgh defense for the Atlanta Falcons. How about Kyle Pitts? You got Kyle Pitts. I was so excited. I knocked my headset out there. You got Kyle Pitts there versus the Steelers. The Steelers defense is always good, but for the Falcons, you got an upgraded quarterback room with Kirk Cousins. You got Michael Penix Jr. waiting there too. Both really good. You got a new coach. That bum Arthur Smith is out of there. I think if Kyle Pitts is ever going to break out, it's going to be this year. And you can do it against the Steelers. So $4,600, bit of a deal on Kyle Pitts. Flex, we're going to go Jalen Tolbert. I am on the Tolbert wagon for today versus the Browns. Now, ideally, I hope Browns shut him out. Everyone does bad on Dallas, and we go away happy. That would make me the most happy, but Dallas is still good, and so is Dak Prescott, and they're going to get there. So give me Tolbert for the Cowboys, $3,400, and then on defense, the DST, $3,800. We got to go with the Cincinnati Bengals versus the Patriots. Guys, we know as Browns fans, Jacoby Brissett, now he can, if the game is in range, he can manage it. If you got to come back, no good. Give me the Bengals at $3,800. That leaves us $100 extra in our fantasy lineup. So that is my perfect DraftKings DFS lineup for this Sunday. Let me know yours. You got any fantasy football questions? Hit me up on X at SickPodBrowns, at AndyMC81. Use hashtag AskAndy. Okay, get us on Instagram and TikTok as well. If you missed any of the show, get us there. Click subscribe, notifications on. And hey, let's get ready. Okay? It's fantasy football. We're setting our lineups, but we're also ready for the Browns game. We got to wait. 4:25. I want it to happen now, but it's going to be here. We're going to be nervous. I want y'all barking. I'm going to come after the game, do a reaction video. Hopefully, I'm overjoyed with the Browns win. Comes down to Deshaun Watson. We'll see what happens at the left tackle spot too. And what that Browns defense year 2 under Jim Schwartz can do. I cannot wait. Thank you so much to Rich Dotson from Dynasty Nerds for joining us. Producer Shane, stellar job as always. And to all of you, get those fantasy questions in. But more importantly, go Browns. Let's go. Let's beat those Cowboys. Be loud at home. Let's go 1-0. I'm Andy McNamara, and you've been listening to the Sick Podcast. Go Browns!
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Andy McNamara on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in New Hampshire, Oregon, and Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ftball. NFL Plus Premium offer available only to new and former NFL Plus subscribers. Additional NFL Plus Premium terms at nfl.com/terms.